Evil doesn't crash into a person's life all at once. It slips in quietly, like a shadow at the edge of a candle flame. That was how it began for Elena Hayes, though she didn't know it yet. To everyone else, she was ordinary. A woman in her late 20s, brown hair tucked carelessly into a bun, working at a local diner to pay off student loans she never finished using. But inside, Elena carried a private storm. She had once dreamed of becoming a teacher, someone who shaped futures with kindness. Yet kindness had betrayed her too many times. She gave her heart to people who took it and crushed it. She trusted friends who left when she needed them most. Even her family, especially her mother, saw her not as a woman, but as a disappointment. Elena had grown tired of giving when the world only took. Still, she told herself she wasn't bitter. She smiled at customers, left tips for waiters, and helped old ladies carry groceries. But every smile felt thinner, every good deed felt heavier. The kindness she offered began to feel like a mask one that was cracking. One night after her shift, Elena walked home under the buzzing neon glow of half-dead streetlights. The streets were quiet, and the air smelled faintly of rain. She passed a man sitting against the wall of a liquor store. He was shivering, holding out a cup. Elena paused. She had $5 left for the week. Logic told her to keep it. Her chest told her to give it. She crouched, dropping the bill into his hand. The man looked up. His eyes were glassy, unreadable. Instead of gratitude, his mouth twisted into a sneer. $5? That's it. You think that'll fix my life? Elena froze, stunned. She wanted to say something, but the man spat on the ground beside her and muttered, "Selfish bitch," before turning away. Her stomach clenched. She walked off quickly, heart hammering, the word ringing in her ears. Selfish. After everything she had given in her life, after how much she sacrificed, that was what the world thought of her. That night, as Elena lay awake in her small apartment, staring at the ceiling fan spinning slowly above her, she wondered, what is the point of being good if people only see the worst in you? The next morning, Elena dragged herself to work. The diner smelled of burnt coffee and grease, comfort for some, exhaustion for her. She smiled at regulars, even laughed when one old man teased her about her messy hair. But inside, she replayed the man's words from last night. At noon, a mother with 2 children came in. The kids were loud, spilling soda across the counter. Elena forced patience into her voice, wiping the mess with a rag. "It's okay," she said, smiling at the little boy who stared at her with wide eyes. The mother didn't thank her. Instead, she snapped, "Can we get someone more experienced here? This is taking forever." Elena's chest tightened, but she stayed silent. The manager waved her away and handled the table himself. Elena slipped into the back, gripping the sink until her knuckles went white. She had done nothing wrong. She had been polite, patient. Still, it wasn't enough. That night, Elena found herself walking further than usual, past the convenience store and down into the old industrial part of town. She didn't know why. Maybe she was avoiding going home to the silence. That was when she noticed a boarded-up warehouse, its windows dark except for one faint glow on the top floor. For reasons she couldn't explain, Elena felt drawn to it. The light flickered, like a candle, like a signal. She stood there for a long time, staring, until a cold breeze sent shivers across her skin and forced her to walk away. But something in her gut told her this wasn't the last time she would see that place. Elena's breaking point came 2 days later. A customer, a man in his suit, snapped his fingers at her for coffee. She bit back her irritation and poured him a refill. When she set the cup down, a splash landed on his tie. He exploded, shouting about incompetence, demanding the manager. Her manager apologized to him, gave him a free meal, then turned on her. "Elena, get your act together or don't bother showing up tomorrow." She stood there, the world tilting under her feet, humiliation burning in her veins. That was when something shifted inside her. For the first time, she didn't feel sadness. She didn't feel guilt. She felt anger pure, sharp, and alive. Walking home that night, her steps were heavier, her chest tighter. And when she passed the old warehouse again, she didn't just glance. She stopped. This time, the glow in the window felt like it was waiting for her. Elena took a step closer. Elena stood at the edge of the street, staring up at the warehouse as if it were alive. The glow from the upper window wasn't steady. It flickered, dimmed, then burned brighter, like a heartbeat pulsing through broken glass. She told herself to keep walking, to go home, to forget the place. But her feet betrayed her. Step by step, she crossed the cracked pavement until she stood at the rusted entrance. The door looked sealed shut, yet when she touched it, the handle turned easily. The metal was cold, biting into her palm. She hesitated, listening. No voices, no movement, only the hollow silence of an abandoned building. She pushed it open. Inside, the air smelled of dust and rusted iron. Her footsteps echoed against concrete floors. The walls were covered with graffiti, layers of color like scars. Broken glass littered the ground. But ahead, at the far end of the corridor, a staircase climbed upward into darkness, leading toward that faint glow she'd seen from outside. Her heart pounded as she climbed. Something about the silence made her chest heavy, like the air itself was watching her. On the 3rd floor, she found it, the source of the light. A single candle burned in the center of an empty room. Beside it sat a chair, and on the chair lay a small black envelope sealed with red wax. Elena stepped closer, her breath catching. She looked around. No one. Just her and the candle and that envelope waiting. With trembling hands, she picked it up. The wax cracked easily, and inside was a folded piece of paper. Handwritten words sprawled across it in neat, careful ink. "You are not invisible. You are not weak. Come back tomorrow at midnight if you want answers." Elena's throat tightened. She turned the paper over, searching for more, but that was it. No name, no explanation. She wanted to laugh. It felt ridiculous, like some kind of urban trap. Yet, as she stood there, she realized how much she wanted those words to be true. She wanted to believe someone saw her, that she wasn't just another shadow no one cared to notice. Clutching the letter, Elena blew out the candle and walked out of the warehouse. The night air hit her face like cold water, but she felt a strange warmth inside, like a spark had been lit. The following day at the diner was worse than usual. Customers complained, her manager nitpicked, and by noon she wanted to scream. But instead of breaking, she found herself smiling faintly. None of it mattered anymore. Tonight she had somewhere to go, something that pulled her away from this gray routine. That night, just before midnight, Elena returned to the warehouse. This time, the door was already open. Inside, the candle was burning again, brighter than before. But the chair was no longer empty. A woman sat there, dressed in black. She was older, maybe in her late 40s, with sharp cheekbones and eyes that seemed to cut right through Elena. Her hands were folded neatly in her lap. "You came," the woman said, her voice smooth, almost soothing. Elena's mouth went dry. "Who are you?" The woman smiled. "Someone who knows what it feels like to give and never receive. To be stepped on, ignored, humiliated. Someone like you." Elena's stomach twisted. "I don't even know you." "You don't have to," the woman said, leaning forward. "I know you. I saw you at the diner. I saw you on the street. And I saw the way people treat you. You think kindness makes you good, but all it does is make you small. Do you want to stay small, Elena?" The sound of her own name startled her. "How do you?" "Names are easy," the woman interrupted. "But what matters is choice. You've been waiting your whole life for someone to notice your pain. I'm noticing. I'm giving you an invitation. Not everyone gets one." Elena took a step back, fear mixing with a strange, guilty excitement. Invitation to what? The woman's eyes glittered in the candlelight. To stop being the one who suffers, to stop bending, to stop breaking, to become something stronger. The silence stretched between them, thick and suffocating. Elena's pulse thundered in her ears. The woman reached into her pocket and slid another envelope across the floor toward her. "Take it," she whispered. "Or walk away and keep living the life they built for you." Elena stared at the envelope. Her mind screamed to leave, but her body didn't move. Slowly, she crouched and picked it up. The paper was heavy, expensive, unlike anything she'd ever held. "Good," the woman said softly. "You've already chosen." Elena wanted to argue, to say she hadn't agreed to anything. But when she opened the envelope and saw the words written inside, she felt her breath catch again. Tomorrow night, the real lesson begins. The next day felt endless. Elena barely remembered the faces of the customers, the clatter of plates, or the nagging voice of her manager. Everything blurred, her mind fixed on the envelope tucked deep inside her coat pocket. Every time she thought about it, her stomach twisted with both fear and hunger. By the time the clock struck 11 that night, she was already pacing her small apartment. She told herself not to go, not to be foolish, not to let curiosity lead her into danger. But her hands shook and her chest felt tight, as though her body had already made the decision her mind resisted. At a few minutes before midnight, Elena found herself walking the familiar cracked pavement toward the warehouse again. The candlelight was there, steady this time, as if waiting for her. The woman in black sat where she had been before, but now there was a second chair across from her. Without a word, she gestured for Elena to sit. Elena lowered herself into the seat, heart pounding. "What is this?" The woman smiled faintly. "This is your first lesson." "Lesson for what?" "To shed the weight of weakness. To stop bleeding kindness into a world that feeds on it. Tell me, Elena, why do you think people walk over you?" The question sliced deep. Elena looked down at her hands. "Because I let them, I guess. I don't want to be cruel." "Cruelty is not the enemy," the woman said softly. "Cruelty is power. It is a language the world understands when kindness fails. And hasn't kindness failed you over and over again?" Elena wanted to protest, but the memory of the homeless man's sneer, the mother's dismissal, the customer's rage, all swirled in her chest like poison. She swallowed hard. "Maybe." The woman leaned forward, her eyes locked on Elena's. "The first lesson is simple. Do not forgive. Do not excuse. Do not carry their sins inside you. Tonight you will let go of your kindness." "How?" Elena whispered. The woman's smile widened. From under the chair, she pulled out a glass jar. Inside was a dead flower, wilted and gray. She set it between them. "This is your kindness. Beautiful once, but starved until it decayed. Smash it, and you'll take your first step." Elena stared at the jar, her breath catching. It was absurd, theatrical. Yet the weight of the woman's gaze made her chest ache. Her fingers trembled as she picked up the jar. For a long moment, she hesitated. Then, with a sharp cry she hadn't meant to release, Elena hurled it against the wall. The glass exploded, shards scattering across the floor. The sound echoed in the emptiness, sharp and violent. She stood frozen, staring at the fragments. Something inside her pulsed, hot and raw. She didn't know if it was relief or fear or both. The woman's voice was soft, approving. "Good, that's the sound of chains breaking." Elena turned toward her, breathless. "I don't feel different." "You will," the woman replied. "The first act is symbolic, but symbols hold power. They plant seeds, and seeds grow." Over the next week, Elena kept returning at midnight. Each night, the woman gave her a new lesson. She never offered a name, and Elena didn't ask. It was easier to think of her as a shadow given form. The lessons grew darker. One night, the woman placed a mirror in front of her. "Tell me every lie you've told yourself," she commanded. Elena stared at her own reflection and whispered, "I'm happy. I'm strong. I'm enough." Each word cracked until she was sobbing. Another night, the woman made her write the names of people who had wronged her, her mother, her former best friend, her manager, and burned them in the candle flame. The smoke stung her eyes, but she didn't look away. With every ritual, Elena felt something shift. She walked through the diner with a colder presence. When customers snapped at her, she didn't shrink anymore. Sometimes she stared at them until they looked away first. Her smile faded, but so did the ache of humiliation. It was intoxicating, this small taste of control. One night, after a particularly brutal day where her manager threatened to fire her again, Elena nearly didn't go to the warehouse. She wanted to crawl into bed and disappear. But something gnawed at her. She needed the lessons now, like oxygen. The woman was waiting, as always. But tonight, there was something new. A small, locked box sat on the table between them. "You're ready for the next step," the woman said. "This isn't about symbols anymore. This is about action." Elena frowned. "What's in the box?" The woman leaned back. "A choice. You've burned names, smashed jars, broken illusions. But all of that is practice. Tonight, you decide if you truly want to stop being the victim." Elena's heart pounded. "What do I have to do?" The woman's eyes glimmered. "Open it." Elena's hand hovered over the box. She could feel heat radiating from it, though she knew that was impossible. Her chest tightened as her fingers curled around the lock. With a click, it opened. She gasped when she saw what was inside. Elena's breath caught as the lid creaked open. Inside the box, nestled against black velvet, was a small silver knife. Its blade gleamed in the candlelight, sharp and narrow, delicate yet deadly. She stared at it, her pulse racing. "This," she whispered, her throat dry. "What is this supposed to mean?" The woman in black didn't answer right away. She let the silence press against Elena like weight on her chest. Finally, she spoke. "That is not a symbol. That is truth. Power is not in words or wishes. Power is in action." Elena shook her head. "You expect me to what? Stab someone?" The woman's eyes softened, though her voice stayed firm. "I expect nothing. The choice is yours. But remember what we've talked about. You've been their victim. The world spits on your kindness, mocks your patience. How much longer will you bend before you break?" Elena's hands trembled as she closed the box, her chest heaving. "I'm not a killer." "No one begins as one," the woman replied quietly. "They are made, piece by piece, lesson by lesson." The words chilled Elena, but also stirred something. She hated how much sense they made. She thought of her manager's sneer, the customer's rage, her mother's disappointment. The faces blurred together until her anger hummed like static. "I can't," she said finally, her voice breaking. The woman leaned closer, her sharp features softened by candlelight. "Not yet, but you will. Keep the box with you. Look at it. Feel its weight. Let it remind you that you do have a choice, one you've been denying your whole life." Elena closed the lid again. When she picked up the box, she expected it to feel cold. Instead, it burned warm against her skin, as if it carried a pulse of its own. For the next few days, Elena couldn't escape it. She hid the box beneath her bed, but she thought about it constantly. At the diner, when a customer shouted at her for being too slow, she imagined her hand slipping into her bag, pulling out the knife, watching his smug expression collapse. She hated herself for thinking it, yet she couldn't stop. The idea of control, real control, was intoxicating. Late one night, after another fight with her manager, she came home and pulled the box out again. She set it on the table and opened it, staring at the blade. She ran her fingers along the handle, not daring to touch the edge. The reflection of her face warped on the silver, her eyes looking darker than usual. She whispered into the silence, "What if I just did it once? Just once." Her voice frightened her, but the thought lingered. The next midnight, she returned to the warehouse. The woman was waiting, as always, calm, composed, as if she had been carved from the shadows themselves. "You've been thinking about it," the woman said without question. Elena clenched her jaw. "Yes, but it scares me. Fear is natural. Fear is the last barrier before freedom." Elena looked down. "What if I regret it?" The woman's smile was faint, almost pitying. "Do you regret how they've treated you? Do you regret every night you cried alone?" "Regret belongs to the weak, Elena. You're not weak anymore." Her stomach twisted. She wanted to argue, but the words stuck in her throat. She had already stepped too far into this world of midnight candles and whispered promises. That night, the woman gave her a new task. "I want you to practice. Don't use the knife yet. But the next time someone wrongs you, don't forgive them. Don't swallow it down. Let them feel your anger." Elena swallowed. "How?" "Your voice, your eyes, your refusal. Even a single word, if spoken with fire, can be a weapon." The opportunity came sooner than she expected. The next day, the diner was slammed with customers. Elena was exhausted, carrying plates that burned her hands, when one customer snapped his fingers at her. "Hey, coffee, what are you even good for?" Something inside her snapped. She turned sharply, slamming the pot of coffee on his table so hard it splashed onto his sleeve. He yelped, jerking back, but Elena didn't apologize. She leaned closer, her voice low and steady. "Say something like that to me again, and you'll regret it." The words didn't feel like hers. They felt like they came from somewhere deeper, sharper. The man gawked at her, speechless. Even the surrounding tables went quiet, shocked by her tone. For the first time in her life, Elena didn't feel small. She felt tall, unshakable. She turned and walked away, heart racing but chest lighter than it had ever been. That night, when she sat across from the woman in the warehouse, she told her what she had done. The woman's smile was slow, deliberate. "Good. The knife is only an extension of what you've already found inside yourself. You are learning." Elena felt a rush of pride but also fear, because deep down she knew she liked it. The knife never left Elena's thoughts. It was there when she woke, when she worked, when she closed her eyes at night. At first it was only a shadow at the edge of her mind, but with each passing day it grew sharper, louder, until it felt like the blade itself was whispering. She carried the box with her everywhere, hidden deep inside her bag. It weighed more than it should, like she was dragging around a secret too heavy to set down. When she reached into her bag for her wallet, Her fingers always brushed against the velvet case, and her pulse quickened. One evening at the diner, her manager cornered her near the back door. "Elena," he snapped, "customers complain about you more every week. You're scaring people. If you don't lighten up, you're done here." Elena clenched her jaw. The words should have hurt. Instead, she imagined what it would feel like to pull the knife from her bag, to watch his smug confidence drain into fear. The image made her dizzy with possibility. She didn't act. Not yet. But she walked away smiling, a smile that wasn't kind, but cold. That night, when she returned to the warehouse, the woman noticed the change immediately. "You've been carrying it," she said, her voice low with approval. Elena nodded. "It's always with me." "And how does it feel?" Like it wants something." Elena swallowed hard. "Like it's waiting." The woman leaned closer, her eyes burning in the candlelight. "No, Elena, it's not the knife that wants. It's you. Stop blaming the blade. The hunger is yours." The words hit Elena like a slap. She wanted to deny it, but her silence betrayed her. "You are close," the woman continued. "Close to breaking free, but freedom always requires a price." The following day, Elena left work late. The streets were slick with rain, the air heavy with gasoline and wet asphalt. As she passed under a flickering streetlight, she heard footsteps behind her. She glanced back. A man was following her, tall, hood pulled low. Her chest tightened. She quickened her pace, but so did he. Her fingers curled around the strap of her bag, heart pounding. Fear surged, but alongside it came something else, anticipation. The man caught up and grabbed her arm. "Hey, sweetheart, where you headed?" His grip was rough, his breath hot with alcohol. Elena froze, panic rising. Then, almost without thinking, her hand slipped into her bag. She felt the velvet box, the smooth curve of the knife's handle as she pulled it free. The man's eyes flickered to the blade, and for the first time, he froze. His grin faltered, his grip loosened. Whoa, easy." Elena's hand shook. She could feel her pulse racing through the knife, like the metal was alive. One move, and she could end him. She could prove she wasn't prey anymore. For a long, electric moment, she stood at the edge of a choice. Her breath came fast, the rain dripping down her hair, her face. Then, with a shudder, she lowered the knife. The man stumbled back, muttered something, and disappeared into the shadows. Elena stood in the rain, trembling, clutching the knife so tightly her knuckles turned white. That night, she returned to the warehouse soaked and shaking. The woman's eyes narrowed as Elena set the knife on the table. "You hesitated." Elena's voice broke. "I almost did it." "But you didn't," the woman replied coldly. "Do you know what hesitation makes you? Weak, and weak people don't survive." Tears stung Elena's eyes, but she blinked them back. "I was scared." "Of what? Him?" The woman leaned forward, her voice rising. "No, you were scared of yourself. Scared of what you are becoming. But fear is a leash, Elena. Cut it." Elena stared at the knife, her chest burning. She had never wanted anything as much as she wanted to prove that woman wrong. The woman's voice softened again. Next time, don't stop. When the moment comes, embrace it. Let the world see what happens when a kind heart finally breaks. Elena reached out and picked up the knife once more. It no longer felt heavy, it felt like it belonged. The days that followed blurred. Elena went to work, spoke to customers, carried on as though life was normal. But inside, she was waiting for the next moment, the next test. And when it came, she knew she wouldn't hesitate. Elena couldn't remember the last time she'd slept through the night without dreams of the warehouse, the knife, or the woman's eyes. Every shadow in her apartment seemed alive, every creak a whisper of judgment. She carried the box everywhere now, not just in her bag, but in her thoughts, embedded into her heartbeat. Work had changed her. Customers who snapped at her no longer left her feeling small. She met their anger with cold stares, sharp words, subtle gestures that made them flinch. Yet even that wasn't enough. The knife called to her from its velvet bed, a siren she could no longer ignore. It was late when the opportunity presented itself. A man, drunk and belligerent, staggered into the diner, knocking over chairs and shouting at staff. Elena felt her chest tighten, not with fear, but anticipation. She followed him to the back, where he shoved a coworker into the wall, laughing cruelly. Elena's fingers brushed against her bag. The knife was there, waiting. Heat radiated through her veins, making her pulse thrum with a dangerous rhythm. She took a deep breath and stepped forward. "Enough," she said, her voice calm but icy. The man turned, eyes narrowing. "And who are you supposed to be?" Elena didn't answer. She drew the knife slowly from the velvet case. The world seemed to slow, every sound fading except the hammering of her heart. The man's grin faltered when he noticed the silver glint. "Put that away." He shouted, but his voice trembled. Elena advanced, hand steady. Fear and awe tangled in his gaze, and for a brief moment she realized the power she held. This was control. This was dominance. This was the edge of the world she had longed for, wrapped in the cold steel of the knife. But then the reality of it hit her like ice. This wasn't a symbol anymore. This was action. And action carried consequences. She hesitated, a shiver running down her spine. The man took a step back, eyes wide. He was small, insignificant, and yet still human. Elena's hand shook. She could feel herself trembling not from fear, but from the intoxicating mix of anger and desire. This was what the woman had warned her about. One step too far, one line crossed, and there would be no turning back. She closed her eyes and breathed deeply. Memories of humiliation, betrayal, and pain flooded her mind. She imagined all the times she had been stepped on, ignored, dismissed. And then she imagined herself standing tall, unbroken, unafraid. Her fingers relaxed. She lowered the knife, slowly, deliberately. The man blinked, confused, then fled without a word, disappearing into the dark streets outside. Elena dropped the knife back into the velvet case, her chest heaving, the adrenaline still thrumming through her body. She had come to the edge, but she had not fallen. That night she returned to the warehouse, drenched from the rain, shaking from exertion and excitement. The woman in black watched her enter, eyes sharp and unreadable. "You hesitated," she said, voice calm but cutting. "I did," Elena admitted, voice trembling. I wanted to see what it felt like, but I didn't." The woman studied her for a long moment. And I don't regret stopping, not yet." The woman's eyes glittered, and for the first time, Elena felt a flicker of admiration or perhaps acknowledgement. "Good, you're learning restraint. But remember, restraint is a tool, not a shield. You will need both soon. The world will test you in ways far worse than a drunk." Elena swallowed hard. "What do you mean?" The woman didn't answer immediately. She stood and moved to the table, opening a drawer she had never shown Elena before. Inside were documents, photographs, and notes detailing people who had caused harm in countless ways: abuse, betrayal, exploitation. "You see," the woman said, "kindness does not protect you from cruelty. But understanding it, learning its patterns, can give you the upper hand. We are going to teach you to strike where it hurts, without hesitation when necessary." Elena leaned closer, curiosity and dread warring inside her. She realized she was no longer just a student. She was becoming something else, a force molded by pain, sharpened by anger, and tempered with caution. That night, as she walked home under the rain-slicked streets, Elena felt a strange mix of fear and power. She was no longer just a woman carrying a knife. She was a woman walking the line between ordinary and monstrous, her heart teetering between empathy and ruthlessness. And she knew, deep down, that the final lesson, the one that would define her completely, was still ahead. Elena stood in the warehouse, the knife resting in her palm like an extension of her own arm. The candlelight flickered across the walls, painting long shadows that stretched and twisted with the rhythm of her heartbeat. She had come a long way from the timid waitress who had once offered a $5 bill to a sneering stranger. That girl felt like someone else entirely, a ghost of innocence long buried. The woman in black observed her silently, her sharp eyes scanning Elena's posture, her expression, her aura. "Tonight," she said softly, "is the night you decide who you truly are. No more lessons, no more hesitation. You will face the final truth. The world does not give power. You take it." Elena's pulse quickened. She had thought about this night endlessly, about the moment when she would step beyond fear, beyond hesitation, beyond the old rules she had lived by. She could feel the knife's weight, the almost imperceptible hum of control coursing through her fingers. The woman's voice pulled her from the edge of her thoughts. "Go." Elena left the warehouse and walked into the rainy night. She didn't need a target. She needed proof, a moment where she could embrace everything she had become. And then she saw him. A man from work, a supervisor she had once trusted, now smug and arrogant, mocking her behind her back. He sneered at her, assuming she had no power, no influence. This was it, the first opportunity to act not just with restraint, but decisively, with the culmination of all her training. Elena approached silently. She didn't shout. She didn't demand. She let the knife glint in the dim streetlight, the reflection catching his eye. His smirk faltered. What? Her lips curved, not in a smile, but in a realization of self. I am done being small, she said, voice calm, unwavering. And in that moment, he saw what the world had never shown her, a woman who had learned to take, to control, to strike when necessary, not mindlessly, but with precision and purpose. The confrontation didn't need violence. Elena's presence alone shifted the balance. Her eyes were sharp, unyielding, the knife a symbol of the fire she had carried for months. He stepped back, powerless, swallowed by the shadow of what she had become. Elena dropped the knife into her bag, the act feeling heavier than wielding it. She had crossed the line, yet she had defined it for herself. She wasn't a victim. She wasn't innocent. She wasn't entirely monstrous either. She was something new, a force shaped by betrayal, anger, and a fierce will to survive. The warehouse awaited her return. The woman in black rose as Elena entered, silent acknowledgment passing between them. You've done it, she said. The line is crossed. There is no going back. You are the monster people never saw coming. But remember this, monsters are not born, they are made. And the choice to become one is always yours. Elena nodded, feeling both triumph and fear. Triumph because she had discovered the power inside herself. Fear because she knew that even now her journey was only beginning. The world would challenge her in ways she could not yet imagine. But she had learned to meet it with fire, with clarity, with ruthless intelligence. For the first time in her life, she walked home without hesitation, without doubt. The rain washed over her like baptism, cleansing her old self and leaving her reborn in shadow and resolve. Elena Hayes, once ordinary, once broken, had stepped fully into the world she had been denied. And the silent birth of her new self had begun. If Elena's journey into darkness gripped you, don't stop here. Explore more stories that unravel the human mind. Share this tale with friends who dare to ask why people become monsters. And subscribe for the next chapter in our exploration of the psychology of evil. Your curiosity is the first step into understanding the shadows that shape us all.